This is Pell Grant 101 by Telmont Corporation. So let's start off by defining what a Pell Grant is. A Pell Grant is need-based and intended to provide low-income students access to any education beyond high school. Grant amounts are determined by the student's expected family contribution, the cost of attendance, whether the student is full or part-time, and whether the student attends a full academic year. Now that we defined what a Pell Grant is, some common questions that you might ask yourself are, what does it cover? Will I need to pay it back? And who is eligible? Generally, the school will apply the Pell Grant money to your remaining tuition first. If any money is left over, it can be applied towards other expenses such as books, supplies, room and board, and childcare costs for students with dependents. Grants, unlike loans, do not have to be repaid. The Pell Grant amount you can receive depends on the federal funding for the program along with your eligibility factors. The U.S. Department of Education determines financial need and eligibility for a Pell Grant by evaluating the financial information reported on the free application for federal student aid. You can get an estimate on how much you will receive by using the Financial Aid Wizard, which is available through the Federal Student Aid website. The website will be linked in the description box below, and I will now go into depth on the criteria that students must meet and maintain, along with what steps you need to take to apply for a Pell Grant. Students are automatically considered for the Pell Grant when they submit their FAFSA. You'll need to fill out a FAFSA once per year every year that you're attending school and want financial aid. Students must meet the criteria that is listed on the screen. The FAFSA form is available beginning October 1st, and you should fill it out as soon as possible on or after October 1st at the official government site, FAFSA.gov. It'll be easier to complete the FAFSA form if you gather what you need ahead of time. Here's what you'll need to fill it out. If you haven't already, create a federal student aid account by setting up a username and password. Each student, and if you're a dependent, one of your parents, will need an FSA account, also known as an FSA ID, to complete the FAFSA process on FAFSA.gov. You will then need to gather your Social Security number, and you can find the number on your Social Security card. If you don't have access to it or you don't know where it is, you can request a new or replacement card from the Social Security Administration. The third thing that you will need is your driver's license number. However, if you don't have a driver's license, don't worry about this step. You will now need your tax records. The IRS is the fastest and most accurate way to input your tax return information into the FAFSA form. You will also need records of your untaxed income and records of your assets. The FAFSA questions about untaxed income such as child support, interest income, and veterans' non-education benefits may or may not apply to you. And records of your assets includes savings and checking account balances, as well as the value of investments such as stocks, bonds, and real estate excluding your primary residence. And lastly, have a list of schools you are interested in attending. The schools that you list on your FAFSA form will automatically receive your FAFSA results electronically. They will use your FAFSA information to determine the types and amounts of financial aid that you may receive. If you submitted a FAFSA and were approved for financial aid, each school that accepted you will send you a financial aid award letter. While there's no standard format for these letters, each explains how much financial assistance the school is offering you. You'll receive the letter electronically or through mail. Here is an example financial aid offer, which includes the following types and sources of aid. Here I am pointing at the cost of attendance. Your cost of attendance is an estimate of what you will pay for 1 year of school, including tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, and transportation or other out-of-pocket expenses. You'll now see that I'm pointing on 1 and 2, and you'll see that Joe received different types of grants and scholarships. Grants and scholarships do not have to be repaid and are available through federal and state governments, colleges and universities, and local and national private organizations. In the description box below, there will be a link where you can read more about the different categories. Here you will see that he did receive a federal Pell Grant of $1,200. So in this sample, it looks like Joe did receive federal work study, and federal work study allows students to work part-time on or near campus while in college. Students are paid work study funds throughout the academic year for the hours that they work, and they can use the earnings for living expenses, books and supplies, and other indirect educational expenses. Work study earnings are taxable, but they are excluded from the student's total income within the financial aid calculation. And just below the federal work study, it looks like he also was offered federal Perkins loan and a federal Stafford loan that are subsidized and unsubsidized. So loans are sums of money that helps students pay their college expenses and must be repaid. So a subsidized loan is need-based aid for which the federal government pays the interest while the student is in school. An unsubsidized loan is not need-based and available to anyone who files the FAFSA. The student may choose to pay the interest while enrolled or defer the interest and add it to the principal amount of the loan upon leaving school. As you review your offer, keep in mind that your financial aid will be divided between the fall and spring semesters. The offer may not list the school's total cost of attendance. The offer may not indicate your remaining balance after the aid is applied. You may need to take action to accept the offer, such as sign and return the offer or accept the offer online. You are permitted to decline parts of the offer, such as a loan. If you have special circumstances that you think warrants you to receive additional financial aid, contact the college's financial aid office. You can now calculate how much you will pay out of pocket by subtracting the aid that you will be receiving from the estimated cost of attendance. After financial aid is applied toward the school's cost, you are responsible for the remaining balance. Because of varying financial aid policies, it can be difficult to predict which college will be the most affordable for your family. Therefore, we encourage you to use the net price calculators found on college websites and consider applying to at least one college that is affordable regardless of financial aid. On this sample, you will see that Joe received about $23,100 in grants and scholarships. This is what I will subtract to the estimated cost of attendance of $55,000. On the estimation of what he would have to pay out of pocket is about $31,900. If Joe then accepts federal work study and the loans that are available to him, then the true out-of-pocket expense would be $20,900. But of course, there might be additional expenses over and above what the college has included in their cost of attendance calculation. You have a few options in covering these extra expenses. You can work part-time, tap into your existing savings account, or apply for other programs and scholarships and/or accept your student loans. Keep in mind that scholarships are free money, while loans require you to pay back the money with an interest rate. There are many resources out there when it comes to how to best pay for college. Telamon Corporation Workforce and Career Services being one of them. Websites, resources, and a guidebook to assist with affording college in Michigan will be linked in the description box below. Thank you for watching.